The bell above the diner door jingled softly as Daniel Hart stepped inside, gently wheeling his daughter Lily behind him. The rain outside pattered steadily against the windows, blurring the view of the sleepy town beyond. The smell of fresh coffee and grilled bacon hung in the air. Claire, a waitress with a messy bun and tired eyes, glanced up from behind the counter. She offered a quick, practiced smile, the kind that came after a long shift and a dozen tables. "Sit wherever you like," she called, her voice kind despite her exhaustion. Daniel chose a booth in the far corner, out of habit, away from the stares, away from the whispers. He gently lifted Lily from her wheelchair and into the booth seat, wrapping a napkin around her neck like a bib. She was small for her age, with a head full of soft curls and bright, curious eyes that darted around the diner. One of her arms trembled slightly as she reached for the menu, her motor skills affected by her condition. Claire walked over with a notepad, but her eyes were on Lily. "Hey there, sweetheart. You like pancakes?" she asked gently. Lily smiled, shyly, and nodded. "She does," Daniel said, his voice deep, controlled, almost guarded. "Pancakes and orange juice." Claire nodded. "Got it." But before turning away, she crouched slightly to Lily's level. "You're doing great. You know, I bet you're a real superhero." Lily giggled and Daniel blinked, surprised. Few people spoke directly to his daughter like that, not out of cruelty, but discomfort. Most people talked over her or avoided eye contact altogether. But Claire looked at Lily like she was any other kid. 15 minutes later, Claire returned, with a steaming plate of blueberry pancakes and a tall glass of orange juice with a silly curly straw. Lily's hands trembled as she tried to pick up her fork. Daniel reached to help her, but paused as Claire gently placed her own hand over Lily's. "May I?" she asked. Lily looked at her father. Daniel gave a slow nod. Claire sat beside Lily and carefully cut the pancakes into small bites. She then guided the fork toward the girl's mouth. "One for Captain Marvel," she joked. "One for Iron Man." Lily laughed and opened her mouth, enjoying the moment more than the food. Daniel watched in silence, his heart tightening. Claire's kindness wasn't performative. It wasn't pity. It was instinctive, natural. She treated Lily with warmth and dignity, the way he hadn't seen in anyone outside a therapy office. For the first time in a long while, Daniel didn't feel invisible in public, and more importantly, neither did his daughter. The last of the lunchtime crowd had trickled out, leaving the diner mostly empty. Rain still drizzled steadily outside, turning the parking lot into a reflective sheet of gray and gold under the streetlights. Claire clocked out, tying her thin windbreaker tighter around her waist as she stepped out the back door. Her sneakers squeaked slightly on the wet pavement. She winced as the chill wind hit her face, then pulled her hoodie up and began a brisk walk toward the bus stop down the block, a 15-minute ride, 2 transfers, and a walk home still ahead of her. Unbeknownst to her, Daniel was still parked across the street in a sleek black SUV. Lily had dozed off in her car seat, her head resting gently against the window. Daniel had been meaning to pull away, but something stopped him. He watched Claire walk through the rain, her backpack slung over one shoulder, her steps quick and practiced. She didn't check her phone. She didn't complain. She simply endured just as she had inside. He hesitated a moment, then opened his door and stepped out. "Claire!" he called across the lot. She turned, surprised. It took her a second to recognize him without the context of the booth. "Oh, Mr. Hart," she said, jogging back a few steps, brushing soaked hair out of her eyes. "Did I forget something?" He shook his head, his coat shielding him from most of the rain. "No, I noticed you were heading out in this weather. Let me give you a ride, please." Claire smiled, grateful but instinctively wary. "That's kind, but I'm okay. The bus comes in a few minutes." "It's not the worst rain I've seen." Daniel paused. "Still, it's late. Let me help." Claire looked at him more closely now. Not just a customer. There was something composed about him, powerful even, but beneath it, there was concern in his eyes, genuine, not flirty, not condescending, just human. She softened. Really, I appreciate it, but I've had to get good at walking in storms. Daniel reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small cream-colored card. He extended it toward her with a quiet firmness. I understand, but take this. In case you ever need help, no pressure. Claire glanced at the card. Just a name, Daniel Hart, and a number, no title. No company, clean, private, subtle. She took it slowly, meeting his eyes. Thanks, she said, tucking it into her coat, but don't think this gets you out of tipping next time. He smiled for the first time that day. Noted. Claire turned and jogged off toward the corner. Daniel stood for a moment, watching her go. Then he returned to his SUV, where Lily stirred awake. She rubbed her eyes and looked up at her father. Daddy, pancake lady nice, she mumbled sleepily. Daniel looked through the rain-slicked windshield toward the spot where Claire had just vanished around the corner. Yes, he said softly. She really is. Claire stood on the edge of the long cobblestone driveway, staring up at the house, no, the mansion, that rose before her. It looked like something out of a movie, ivy crawling along stone walls, tall windows that reflected the afternoon sun like mirrors, and wrought iron gates that had opened for her only minutes ago after a quiet voice over the intercom said, "We've been expecting you, Ms. Bennett." She clutched the invitation envelope in her hand, thick cardstock, her name handwritten in elegant script, the return address unfamiliar. She had almost thrown it out, thinking it was a mistake, but her gut had whispered, "Don't." And now, standing here, she understood why. The grand oak door opened before she could knock. A butler in a slate-gray suit gave her a respectful nod. "Mr. Hart is waiting in the conservatory, ma'am. This way." She stepped inside, overwhelmed by the warmth and quiet. No staff scurried past. No expensive art screamed for attention. It was elegant, yes, but restrained. The home of someone who had money, but also sorrow. Claire followed the butler through a hallway flooded with natural light and into a sun-drenched conservatory filled with hanging plants and tall palms. There, Daniel Hart sat in a chair by the window, dressed more casually now in a white shirt and slacks, a tablet resting on the table beside him. Lily was nearby, nestled into a soft armchair with a storybook in her lap. When she looked up and saw Claire, her whole face lit up. "Pancake lady!" Claire laughed, touched by the nickname. "Hey, sweetheart." Daniel stood. "Claire, thank you for coming." He gestured toward the chair across from him. "Please, sit." She lowered herself carefully, still glancing around. "This place, it's beautiful." "I didn't invite you here to impress you," he said gently. "Though I imagine this is all a bit much." Claire smiled cautiously. "A little." Daniel sat forward, elbows on his knees, his voice quiet. "The other day at the diner, I saw something. You treated my daughter like she mattered, like she wasn't a problem to manage or an inconvenience." Claire's brow furrowed. "She's not. She's a kid, a sweet, funny one." He nodded slowly, eyes never leaving hers. "I've had money for a long time. I've built companies, funded schools, paid for specialists from every corner of the country. But in that moment, feeding her pancakes and talking to her like a person, you did more for her spirit than most of those people ever have." Claire blinked, overwhelmed. I didn't do anything special. She was hungry. I had a fork." "No," he said, softly but firmly. "You saw her. That matters more than you think." He leaned back slightly, then reached for a folder and slid it across the table to her. I want to offer you something. A job. To be Lily's full-time caregiver. Companion, really. You'd live here. Your own suite. Full salary, benefits, health insurance, and more importantly, time. Time to help her grow, without rushing out the door or juggling 3 tables and a tray of coffee. Claire's mouth fell open slightly. Mr. Hart, I'm a waitress. I don't have medical training. You have heart, he said. The rest we'll provide. Therapists, assistants, whatever you need. But she needs someone who sees her. Claire glanced at Lily, who had gone back to her book but was peeking up at them now, smiling shyly. Her eyes sparkled with that same quiet hope Claire had seen in the diner. And something clicked. She turned back to Daniel, voice trembling. Are you sure? This isn't a favor? It's an investment, he replied. In her, in you, in the kind of home she deserves. Claire nodded slowly, tears stinging her eyes. Then yes, I'll do it. 6 months later, the Hart estate no longer felt like a fortress. It felt like something closer to a home. The winter had melted into a golden spring, and in the sprawling back garden, birdsong replaced silence. Lily was sitting cross-legged, on a thick quilt in the sun-drenched grass, her hands busy stacking colorful wooden blocks. She was stronger now, steadier. She still had bad days, still needed help, but her laugh came easier. Her shoulders weren't always tense. Her eyes didn't always search for her father with anxiety anymore. And right beside her was Claire. Wearing jeans and a soft cardigan, hair down for once, she read aloud from a picture book, pausing dramatically at all the funny parts. Lily giggled, her voice loud and bright as she leaned into Claire's side. Occasionally, she repeated a word or pointed to a picture to show she'd understood. Every few minutes, she'd glance toward the French doors, where Daniel watched from the Yates patio, coffee in hand, a faint smile on his lips. He hadn't meant for all this to happen, not like this. He had hired Claire to care for his daughter, but she had ended up healing parts of him he hadn't realized were still broken. She had brought warmth into the halls of his house, filled once with cold elegance. The staff smiled more now. Rooms once closed off were filled with laughter and music. Claire had even convinced him to let Lily paint one of the walls in the east wing. The result was a mural of stars and suns and crooked flowers, perfectly imperfect. Daniel stepped down from the patio and walked across the grass. Claire looked up and smiled, her voice still mid-sentence, not missing a beat as she finished the story's page. Lily clapped, proud of herself. You're getting good at those big words, Claire said. Because you help me, Lily beamed. Daniel sat beside them. What are we reading today? The Girl and the Stubborn Star, Claire answered. She refuses to fall until someone believes she's more than just a light in the sky. He chuckled softly. Sounds familiar. Claire smiled, but there was something deeper behind it now. Understanding, closeness, something unspoken between them. Lily yawned and curled onto the blanket, eyes fluttering closed. Daniel watched his daughter sleep for a moment, then looked at Claire. You changed her life. Claire looked back at him, voice low. She changed mine too. He didn't speak for a moment. The sun was warm on their faces, and for once, silence felt full, not empty. Then, gently, he said, I was afraid this house would always feel like a museum, full of memories I couldn't touch. But you brought life into it again. Claire blinked away tears. She brought it. I just helped open the doors. Daniel nodded. Either way, I'm grateful. They sat in the grass, shoulder to shoulder, watching over the girl they both loved, not as caregiver and employer, but as something more. Maybe it wasn't just Lily's life that had been rewritten. Maybe they'd all been given a second chance.